explain the phenomenon of Trump. I think that he is counter to the stereotype over the years. I think that he speaks in a way that appeals to not just Americans, but I think many people around the world it's not a simplicity, but it cuts through.
Let's talk about former United States men's national team player Alexi Lalas.
President Trump voiced support for the U.S. Mexico-Canada joint bid to host the World Cup 2026 when he tweeted, "The U.S. has put together a strong bid with Canada and Mexico for the 2026 World Cup. It would be a shame if countries that we always support were to lobby against the U.S. bid. Why should we be supporting these countries when they don't support us, including at the United Nations?" Now, was this a threat? Yeah, but it did push the envelope, which is exactly what President Trump does. In The Art of the Deal, President Trump talks about his 11 tactics in business.
He's a supporter of Donald Trump.
I'm going to stand, I'm going to put my hand over my heart, and I am going to sing. And I believe that all U.S. national team players should be required to do that, because just because we live in the land of the free doesn't mean that we are free to do anything that we want.
An opposer of players expressing their First Amendment rights.
I think also he says things that people think but are afraid to say. We live in a culture of fear, let's be honest.
Especially in California.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do not get me wrong. He has had horrendous takes in the past, but this one probably takes the cake.
We oftentimes talk about our diversity, and we talk about it in the fact that it is, one of the advantages that we have, and one of the great things about our country. But with that diversity comes diversity of thought. So I've argued that the homogenous nature of some other countries and cultures, just in population, in terms of the size, are much more manageable, and there is a collective understanding, and more importantly, an agreement in this is how we're going to play. But getting 11 men to represent this great country of 350 million people and all be on the same page, that is very, very difficult. I've argued before that maybe our best route to actually being better from a men's perspective in soccer is actually being more exclusive, not being as inclusive, in that if you went to, the New York metropolitan area or Southern California, and you just took players,
built a team from
that
one
all
area,
grew up in the same area, had all of these shared experiences, maybe that would be better in terms of an understanding. This melting pot fallacy that I'll be the first to admit I bought into, and I'm not saying it can't happen, it just takes a lot longer with a whole lot more work, and especially when it comes to a national team, you do not have time to be able to do that.
This rhetoric, even if it is from what appears on the surface, if you knew nothing about this man, a lovable American who gives the, oh shucks, let's be sarcastic all the time mentality, is similar to this.
Qu'on me donne une raison, une seule, pour garder sur notre territoire des étrangers qui collaborent avec une idéologie totalitaire qui veut la mort des Français.
Take Marine Le Pen, a far-right darling who has lost multiple elections that would undoubtedly draw support from Lalas. She's the daughter of Jean-Marie Le Pen, the same man who said, when 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, and I quote, "It was just a detail of history." He would also attack his country's national team using blatant racism and buzzwords that cater to only those with a bigoted mindset. Jean-Marie said France cannot recognize itself in the national side, and that maybe the coach exaggerated the proportion of players of color and should have been a bit more careful. When Zinedine Zidane was a fixture, he called the team, and I quote, "Black, blanc, et bleu." That translates to black, white, and Arab. As you can see, France was a multicultural team at the time of these critiques, and they won the World Cup. Then
his daughter, Marie Le Pen, who's now a popular politician in the right wing in France, as late as 2010 said that she was worried about immigrants being on the French national team because they have, quote, another nationality in their hearts.
Thus, both Le Pens attacked the national team, and guess what? Like clockwork, both won the World Cup. And yet, still, racists will always racist. Because winning does not actually solve all ills. When those same players have a slip up in international play, folks like Mark Gronza enter the chat, spouting great replacement theory. Sadly for Lalas, he needs new material. This isn't some new revelation from Lalas either, wrote awful announcing Sam Newman. He made the same argument in a 2017 New York Times interview, again on the Men in Blazers podcast that same year, and again in 2018. At this point, it feels like it's his go-to talking point, a stump speech he dusts off every few years, despite the backlash that always follows. Newman would then link to a must-read piece from Parker Cleveland, which printed in part. Lalas discounts the way that being from an underrepresented background in the upper levels of soccer in the United States excludes players by means that are beyond their control. By conflating social diversity and variation in soccer styles, Lalas is masquerading exclusion as colorblindness. Before the 2014 World Cup, the Washington Post published a study that would conclude there is a positive relationship between diversity and performance that is visible even among the very best teams in the world. Teams that eschew international talent to cultivate solely homegrown are likely to come up short on the world's biggest stage. The article would go on to say, surprisingly, we find no evidence of diminishing returns to diversity. It almost always helps to enhance the pool of styles available on the pitch. The other issue that must be addressed is the pay-to-play system in this country, where only the wealthy can afford and have the means to participate in this sport. From The Guardian, the term pay-to-play essentially refers to the often exorbitant fees required of the parents and careers of young people participating in organized youth sports. In soccer, youth clubs can typically cost families thousands of dollars a year, with coaching costs, administration fees, travel expenses. Clubs in the state of California, and this almost feels outdated at this point, and it's within the last year, have a price range from $1,000 to $10,000 a year. And you know who even said that this is getting way worse? I'll tell you. Alex Morgan, who knows a thing or two about winning World Cups, unlike Alexi Lalas. Sorry to pull the Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley card, but really it's more like Shaquille O'Neal to like, I don't want to disrespect any NBA guys, to a cup of coffee. To a guy who had a cup of coffee in the league. That's what it is. Because Alexi Lalas might be viewed as this super successful player, which, hey, playing in Italy, I think he did have a successful career. But when we're talking about winning, not necessarily on the right side of that. But what really strikes me is at this point in time, when companies are rolling back diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, we see the most powerful people in the country, all the way up to the president, talk about rolling back and eroding DEI practices. And how intrinsically linked this man is to the current administration and Ron DeSantis and the things that he supports. And echoing those same talking points, just using it in what he thinks is a sporting format, is grotesque. It's disgusting, man. This is probably the same guy who says we need to keep politics out of sports. And yet here he is doing the exact same thing without even realizing it. I have gone after this man previously because I feel that when someone is out of line and factually inaccurate in the things that they say, especially when they are one of the highest paid pundits in the sport and has been given opportunity after opportunity with two of, not some of, but the biggest networks in this country, and continues to spout falsehoods, it should be fact-checked. It should be criticized. It should be demeaned. This is disrespectful on so many levels, and yet for Alexi Lalas, don't forget, he is going to provide you with analysis for the 2025 Gold Cup and then the World Cup as well, so enjoy. Hey, I appreciate you watching. Now, if you can, please do become a channel member by going to youtube.com/TYT Sports and clicking the join button. If that's too much for you, you can just go to tyt.com/join to become a member. It helps all of us out here at the Young Turks and keeps our network afloat. In addition, you could follow me on my socials on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate the love. Have a great day.